FEDRA, short for Federal Disaster Response Agency, was originally created to help during national emergencies. After the world collapsed, FEDRA became one of the last remaining government forces. At first, they were supposed to protect people and maintain order, but over time, they turned into a strict and controlling military power. FEDRA took control of major cities and created quarantine zones, QZs, where uninfected people could live. These zones were surrounded by walls and patrolled by armed soldiers. In theory, they were meant to keep people safe from the infected, but inside the zones, life was far from peaceful. In the quarantine zones, FEDRA ruled with fear. People had to follow curfews, obey soldiers, and accept whatever rations they were given. Breaking rules, even small ones, could lead to arrest or even public executions. Citizens had little to no freedom. FEDRA claimed it was for their safety, but most people felt like prisoners in their own homes. FEDRA controlled everything: food distribution, housing, jobs, and medical care. They didn't allow free speech, protest, or questioning of their actions. People were assigned tasks whether they wanted them or not, and if you weren't useful, you risked losing your place in the zone entirely. Many people saw FEDRA not as protectors, but as oppressors. Over time, corruption became a big problem. Some FEDRA soldiers would steal food, trade drugs, or abuse civilians. Black markets popped up inside the QZ so people could get the supplies FEDRA wouldn't give them. These illegal trades were often ignored or even used by FEDRA soldiers themselves. The system became more about survival for the powerful than fairness for everyone. FEDRA's harsh rule caused many people to fight back. This led to the rise of rebel groups, like the Fireflies. The Fireflies believed that FEDRA had failed people and needed to be overthrown. Across the country, battles broke out between FEDRA and the resistance groups. These fights caused even more fear and suffering in already broken cities. In some places, FEDRA lost control completely. Cities like Pittsburgh and Seattle saw uprisings where the people drove FEDRA out. But in those cases, what came after was often just as bad, or worse. Without any government left, violent groups like the Hunters or the WLF took over. Despite their cruelty, FEDRA did succeed at one thing: maintaining control. In the zones they still ruled, there was food, shelter, and protection from the infected. Some people chose to stay under FEDRA's rule because it felt safer than the chaos outside. But that safety came at the cost of personal freedom and basic human rights. FEDRA used a military-style command system with orders coming from the top down. Regular soldiers were expected to follow commands without question. Disobeying meant punishment. There was no voting, no public meetings, and no way for citizens to change how things worked. By the time of The Last of Us Part 2, FEDRA has mostly collapsed. Only a few zones are still active, and even those are barely holding on. Other factions, like Jackson and the WLF, have taken control of their own areas with different rules and systems. FEDRA's grip on the world has mostly faded, but their impact remains. FEDRA is a symbol of what can happen when a group that starts with good intentions becomes corrupted with power and fear. They tried to keep society together, but in the end they became the very thing they were supposed to protect people from. The Fireflies are one of the most important factions in The Last of Us. They are a rebellion group that formed to fight against FEDRA, the strict military force that controlled most of quarantine zones after the outbreak. The Fireflies believed that FEDRA had become too harsh and corrupt, that a better world was still possible. Their main goals were to bring back freedom and find a cure for the infection. Unlike many other groups, the Fireflies didn't want to just survive. They wanted to restore society and give people hope again. They believed that science and medicine could save humanity, and they were willing to risk everything to make that happen. The Fireflies were known for being secretive and mobile. They operated in small groups across the country, often hiding in abandoned buildings, underground tunnels, and safe houses. They used coded radio messages to communicate and moved often to avoid being captured by FEDRA soldiers. In many areas, they were seen as dangerous rebels or even terrorists. The group was led by strong, determined soldiers who believed in their mission. They recruited scientists, doctors, former soldiers, and regular people who wanted change. Their symbol, a glowing firefly, was painted on walls and buildings as a sign of hope and resistance. To many survivors, it meant that the Fireflies had been there, and not everyone had given up. The Fireflies carried out missions to steal supplies, free prisoners, and gather important people like doctors or immune individuals. They tried to avoid harming civilians, but they were willing to fight FEDRA and other enemies if needed. This made them targets, and many Fireflies were killed or captured during battles. One of the group's biggest weaknesses was how spread out and under-equipped they were. They didn't have the numbers or firepower that FEDRA had. Many of their missions were dangerous, and some failed completely. Over time, they lost bases, leaders, and key members. The more they were hunted, the harder it became to keep going. The Fireflies had a strong presence in several cities, including Boston, Salt Lake City, and others. They built makeshift labs and medical stations in hopes of studying the infection and finding a cure. Their scientists worked in secret, always under the threat of discovery or attack. Despite their struggles, the Fireflies stayed committed to their mission. They believed that if they could find someone immune to the infection, that they could use that person to create a vaccine. This dream became their final goal, a way to truly save the world, not just survive in it. However, their strict focus on the cure led to tough moral decisions. The Fireflies believed that saving humanity was more important than the cost. This created tension within the group and raised questions about how far they were willing to go to achieve their mission. Some members started to doubt whether the ends truly justified the means. Eventually, the Fireflies began to fall apart. Without enough support and too many losses, their power faded. In some cities, they were completely wiped out. In others, they went into hiding or broke into smaller groups. By the time of The Last of Us Part 2, the Fireflies were mostly disbanded, though rumors suggested some survivors were trying to rebuild. The Fireflies represent hope, sacrifice, and resistance. They were one of the few factions that believed the world could be healed, not just endured. Even though they failed in many ways, their efforts shaped the future and left behind a legacy of courage and belief in something greater. The Hunters are one of the most violent and ruthless factions in The Last of Us. Based in Pittsburgh, they are a group of survivors who have completely given up on rebuilding society. Instead of farming, trading, or protecting others, the Hunters survive by stealing, killing, and ambushing travelers who pass through their territory. Originally, the Pittsburgh area was run by FEDRA, like many quarantine zones in the early days. But over time, the citizens grew tired of FEDRA's control and harsh rules. Eventually, a rebellion broke out, and the soldiers were overthrown. With FEDRA gone, a new power took over, not a government or a peaceful group, but the Hunters. The Hunters aren't organized like a regular army or community. They don't have a leader or a goal beyond survival through force. Their group is made up of ordinary people who decided that the only way to stay alive was to take from others. This includes adults, young men, and even teenagers, all willing to kill if it meant getting supplies. The Hunters are known for setting traps and ambushes. They block roads with crashed cars, fake road signs, and even injured decoys to trick travelers into stopping. Once someone enters the city, they're usually surrounded and attacked. The Hunters take everything their victims have: weapons, food, clothes, and leave no witnesses. They have a strong presence throughout Pittsburgh. They use old buildings and rooftops as lookout points and bases. Some members patrol in trucks, while others hide in alleys waiting to strike. Their fighting style is brutal, relying on surprise, numbers, and cruelty. They don't just kill quickly, they often torture or toy with people, showing how far their morality has crumbled. Despite their violent nature, the Hunters are not completely without structure. They keep watch over certain areas, guard supply stashes, and communicate using radios. This shows that while they may not have clear leadership, they work together just enough to keep control over their city. Their coordination makes them even more dangerous. The inside of their territory is full of disturbing signs of their way of life. Bloodstains, piles of bodies, and the writings on the wall show how many people they've killed. There are rooms that appear to be used for holding prisoners or stripping corpses, suggesting that this group has been doing this for a long time and has no plans to stop. The Hunters don't build farms or try to create a future. They don't help outsiders, and they don't believe in trust. Their entire system is based on violence, theft, and survival at any cost. To them, other people are nothing more than walking resources. If you're not part of their group, you're a target. Over time, their numbers likely started to shrink. As they killed or scared off more travelers, it became harder to find new victims. Without outside supplies, their way of life couldn't last forever. Still, during the time they were active, the Hunters made Pittsburgh one of the most feared and dangerous places in the country. The Jackson community is one of the few safe and peaceful places left in the world of The Last of Us. Located in Jackson, Wyoming, this walled settlement stands out because it offers something that most other groups have lost: a real sense of community, structure, and hope. The town was built by a group of survivors who wanted more than to just stay alive. They wanted to rebuild. Instead of taking from others or using fear to control people, they created a society based on cooperation and shared responsibility. Everyone in Jackson has a role to play, and the people work together to keep the town running. Jackson is surrounded by high wooden walls and fences that protect it from infected and raiders. The town is also patrolled by trained guards on horseback, who scout the area for danger and make sure the roads are safe. These patrols help keep the town secure while also watching out for supplies or travelers in need. Inside Jackson, there are homes, farms, stables, a school, a bar, and even electricity. This power comes from a hydroelectric dam nearby, which provides energy for heating, lighting, and running water. This makes Jackson one of the most advanced and comfortable settlements in the series. People living in Jackson grow their own food, raise animals, and cook meals for the community. There are jobs for everyone, including farmers, cooks, teachers, guards, and medical workers. Children are taught in classrooms, families live together in cabins, and people gather for movie nights and holiday celebrations. It's one of the only places where life feels close to what it used to be. What really makes Jackson special is its focus on freedom, safety, and fairness. There are no cruel punishments or forced labor. Instead, the town is led by a small group of elected leaders who listen to the people and make decisions based on what's best for everybody. Of course, Jackson is not perfect. The world outside its walls is still dangerous. Patrols must face infected, wild animals, or hostile groups. People in Jackson must be prepared to defend themselves at any time. But unlike other factions, the community doesn't believe in attacking others unless it's absolutely necessary. While other groups like the WLF or Seraphites use strict control or religious rules to survive, Jackson runs on mutual trust and cooperation. The people there genuinely want to protect one another. They know that survival isn't just about fighting, it's about building a place where people can actually live. Because of this, Jackson has become a symbol of hope. Travelers who hear about it often dream about reaching it. It represents the idea that not all of humanity is lost, that there are still people trying to do what's right in a broken world. Jackson proves that it's still possible to be strong without becoming cruel. The community also works hard to help those in need. If someone is sick or injured, they receive medical care. If someone is new to town, they're welcomed and given a chance to contribute. Jackson is one of the few places where compassion still exists. In a world filled with violence, loss, and fear, the Jackson community shows that people can still come together to create something better. It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, there's still a chance for kindness, healing, and rebuilding as long as people are willing to work together. The Washington Liberation Front, also known as the WLF or Wolves, is a powerful military group based in Seattle. They are one of the largest and most organized factions in The Last of Us Part 2. The WLF is known for its strict rules, trained soldiers, and advanced weapons, but also for its harsh leadership and violent methods. The WLF began as a revolutionary group. Many of its members were regular citizens and former FEDRA soldiers who were tired of living under strict military control. FEDRA ruled Seattle with force, curfews, and punishment. Eventually, the people rose up, and after a long and bloody conflict, the WLF succeeded in kicking FEDRA out of the city. After that victory, the WLF became the new ruling force in Seattle. They organized themselves like a military, with ranks, patrols, and a command center inside a large football stadium, which they turned into their main base. They built housing, farms, workshops, and armories. Everyone had a job, and the group functioned like a small city under military rule. The Wolves had many skilled members: soldiers, medics, engineers, farmers, and scouts. Their goal is to protect their people and make sure that their community stays strong and secure. They train with rifles, pistols, and explosives, and even use guard dogs to track intruders. Because of their size and resources, the WLF is one of the strongest factions in the region. But their strength comes at a cost. Life under WLF control is strict and unforgiving. Rules must be followed, and orders from higher-ups cannot be questioned. Their leader, Isaac, is known for being tough and focused on victory, especially in the group's ongoing war with another faction called the Seraphites, or Scars. Isaac believes that the Seraphites are dangerous and must be wiped out completely. The war between the WLF and the Seraphites have been going on for years. It's caused many deaths, destroyed neighborhoods, and left much of Seattle in ruins. The Wolves use their military power to attack Seraphite camps, while the Seraphites use stealth and guerrilla tactics to fight back. Both sides have suffered heavy losses, and the fighting has become more desperate over time. Some WLF members have started to question the war. They wonder if the group is still fighting to protect its people or if it's just trying to destroy the enemy no matter the cost. There are signs of tension inside the WLF, with some soldiers disagreeing with the leadership decisions. But speaking out can be dangerous, so most people stay quiet and follow orders. The WLF sees outsiders as possible threats. Strangers entering their territory are often captured or killed, especially if they're caught during wartime. The Wolves believe in keeping Seattle safe, but their methods are sometimes harsh, especially towards anyone who doesn't follow their way of life. Despite their flaws, the WLF has managed to build one of the most advanced communities in the Last of Us world. They have power, food, shelter, and protection, things many other survivors dream of. But their story also shows how easy it is for a group that once stood for freedom to become just as controlling as the system they fought against. The Seraphites, also called Scars by outsiders, are a religious group that formed after the collapse of modern society. They are one of the most mysterious and unique factions in The Last of Us Part 2. While some people see them as peaceful and spiritual, others see them as dangerous and extreme. The Seraphites follow the teachings of a woman known only as the Prophet. She believed that modern technology, greed, and pride caused the downfall of society. After her death, her followers built a belief system based on her messages. They believed that people should live simple lives, close to nature, and free of the sins of the old world. Over time, the Seraphites created their own society with strict rules and traditions. They live in small villages built from wood, stone, and natural materials. They avoid technology, do not use electricity or guns, and instead fight with bows, hammers, and silent weapons. They farm, raise animals, and rely on nature to survive. To show their devotion, many Seraphites scar their faces, cutting lines from their mouths to their cheeks. This is why the other groups call them scars, even though the Seraphites find that name insulting. They see the scars as a symbol of humility, faith, and unity. One of the most unique things about the Seraphites is how they communicate in silence. Instead of speaking during patrols or combat, they use whistling signals to talk to one another. This helps them move quietly and coordinate attacks without giving away their location. This makes them very dangerous, especially in forested or dark areas. The Seraphites are very protective of their land. They control parts of the city, the forests, and nearby islands. Outsiders who enter their territory are treated as threats. If someone doesn't follow their rules, they may be punished or killed. They believe their way of life must be protected from the corruption of the outside world. The group is led by elders who are in charge of interpreting the prophet's teachings and maintaining order. These leaders are strict and expect full obedience. Questioning the faith or disobeying orders can lead to exile, imprisonment, or even execution. Because of this, many Seraphites follow the rules without question, even if they don't always agree with them. Over time, the Seraphites became involved in a brutal war with the Washington Liberation Front, WLF. The WLF uses guns and modern tactics, while the Seraphites rely on stealth and old-fashioned weapons. The two groups fight over land and resources, and their hatred for each other grows with every battle. Some members of the group have started to question whether the Seraphites are still following the prophet's true beliefs. They wonder if the elders have gone too far by embracing war and cruelty. But speaking out is dangerous, so most people stay silent. Despite their flaws, the Seraphites have managed to build one of the most stable communities in the game's world. They grow their own food, care for each other, and live in harmony with nature. Their beliefs give them purpose and hope, even if those beliefs sometimes lead to dark actions. The Seraphites show how faith can bring people together, but also how it can be twisted over time. They began as a peaceful group trying to rebuild the world in a better way, but through war, fear, and strict control, they became something harsher. A group that punishes outsiders and allows no room for change. David's group is a small but disturbing faction of survivors found in the snowy mountains of Silver Lake, Colorado. On the surface, they appear to be a quiet, close-knit community just trying to survive. But underneath that calm appearance, the group hides a terrifying truth. They practice cannibalism and follow a leader who manipulates and controls them through fear and false kindness. After society collapsed, this group formed to survive together in a cold, isolated wilderness. They built shelter in an abandoned ski lodge, hunted animals, and sent scouts to look for supplies. But when food ran low, they made a choice that many others wouldn't. They began eating human flesh to stay alive. What likely started as an act of desperation slowly became routine. The most disturbing part is that most members don't even know they're eating people. The leadership, including David and his close followers, hide the truth. They prepare the food out of sight and tell the group it's deer meat or venison. This kind of manipulation keeps the rest of the group loyal, calm, and unaware of the horrible acts being committed in secret. David is the group's sole leader, and he rules with quiet authority. Unlike the other factions who use force or shouting, David leads through charm and control. He presents himself as gentle, patient, and wise. He tells his followers that everything is for the greater good, that their survival is more important than the old ideas of right and wrong. His calm voice hides a cold, dangerous personality. The group is organized but not large. They have scouts, guards, cooks, and hunters, all of whom trust David completely. They follow his orders without question, believing he always knows what's best. Some seem truly devoted to him, while others may be too scared to leave or speak out. Either way, David holds complete power. David's group is very protective of their territory. They track outsiders, and if someone is seen as a threat or even just a resource, they will try to capture or kill them. While they may act friendly at first, they often lure people in with lies or trick them into trusting the group. Once someone is under their control, it's nearly impossible to escape. The ski lodge is set up as a stronghold. There are locked doors, storage rooms, and hidden areas for storing meat. Everything is built for secrecy and defense. The group doesn't try to grow food or build a peaceful future. Their only goal is to survive, no matter the cost. That includes hurting or killing others, even innocent people, if it means they can last another day. This faction represents one of the darkest paths a survivor group can take. They show how fear, hunger, and desperation can lead people to abandon their morals. Over time, their actions become normal to them, and even acceptable. David justifies everything by calling it necessary, and his followers go along with it because they believe he's keeping them safe. David's group doesn't have a long-term plan or purpose beyond survival. They don't seek peace, justice, or community. Instead, they exist in a cycle of fear and control, powered by lies and violence. The more desperate the world becomes, the more dangerous groups like this can be. The Rattlers are a brutal and cruel faction introduced near the end of The Last of Us Part 2. They operate in Santa Barbara, California, and are known for their violence, slavery, and disturbing use of infected as weapons. Unlike other groups in the series that are trying to rebuild or protect their people, the Rattlers only care about power, comfort, and control. This group is made up of armed survivors who have taken over a luxurious coastal mansion and turned it into a heavily guarded base. They patrol the area, searching for other survivors, not to help them but to capture and enslave them. The Rattlers force their prisoners to work in dangerous, miserable conditions, often chaining them in cells or forcing them to maintain the group's weapons and supplies. One of the Rattlers' most disturbing traits is their use of infected as living traps. They capture runners and clickers, chain them to fences or posts, and use them as a form of defense. If someone tries to sneak into their territory, they might get attacked by an infected before even facing a guard. The Rattlers treat the infected as tools, not threats, and their willingness to use them this way shows how reckless and cruel they really are. The Rattlers brand their slaves with hot irons to mark ownership. People are no longer seen as human, just property. Prisoners are beaten, starved, and abused. The group doesn't try to hide its cruelty. In fact, the Rattlers take pride in strength and enjoy watching others suffer. It's clear that the people in charge have completely lost their morality. This group doesn't seem to have any long-term plan or belief system. They aren't trying to build a community or find a cure. They just want to enjoy life at the top while forcing others to suffer beneath them. Their world is about power and dominance, and they will kill or enslave anyone who gets in their way. The Rattlers are well armed and organized. They use radios, rifles, body armor, and even trained dogs. Their patrols are frequent and their territory is well guarded. This makes them a tough group to sneak past or fight directly. But despite their strength, they are not respected or admired. Other survivors view them as monsters, and rightly so. Visually, the Rattlers have a rough, punk-like style. Many of them have tattoos, sunglasses, and dirty tactical gear. Their base is full of cages, chains, and infected traps, making it feel more like a prison than a home. Even though they live in a nice area, they've made it cold, dark, and full of fear. The Rattlers show what can happen when a group gives up all sense of morality and humanity. They're not trying to survive the right way. They're thriving by stepping on others. In a world where most people are struggling to live, the Rattlers have decided to enjoy their power, no matter who they hurt. In the end, the Rattlers are one of the darkest factions in The Last of Us. They don't pretend to be good, and they don't follow any rules. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed, maybe leave a like if you want.